Hello, and welcome to Becoming Your Healthiest Self. This week, we're going to look at movement and exercise and how it can contribute to you becoming the healthiest version of you. Let's look at movement and exercise and its effects on our health. He says exercise. I thought you said extra fries. If only exercise could be made into a pill, right? It would be the most prescribed medication on earth. We're going to look at the benefits of exercise and movement, the types of exercise needed for health and good functioning throughout your life, and the limits of exercise for weight control. That's important to know, and making exercise a routine. We've been looking at metabolic syndrome and especially the effects of the diet as the number one risk factor for lifestyle-related health problems. We're going to look at how one might reverse this process using the secret weapon of movement and exercise. So a really interesting fact is that these guys, these sumo wrestlers, who you would think would have metabolic syndrome, actually do not. They're using that secret weapon, though, at a very high degree. They exercise 3 to 4 hours a day. So that helps to counter what's happening with their diet. But once they retire, of course, they get metabolic syndrome. So the effects of exercise and metabolic health, we know that with aging, we tend to have decreased activity, and then these type of problems happen that are associated with the metabolic syndrome. But there's really good news. The biggest factor is not the aging, it's the physical activity. If we can simply increase our physical activity, we can help reverse all of these symptoms that are associated with metabolic syndrome. So I showed this slide to you early on, and the point is that if one exercises their whole life, yes, they're going to stay above the threshold of disability, or they're more likely to stay above that threshold until later in life or close to the time that they die. Whereas if we're sedentary our whole lives, we're more likely to reach that threshold of disability much sooner in life. But the good news is that we can, in fact, make a difference by adding exercise to our life at any stage in life, even in older age. Are you going to make the decision to add the exercise and movement to your life? We know that 85 years old can look very different. Iva Barr, she completed the London Marathon at age 85. Ken Jones, he also completed the London Marathon at age 85. But they are not the oldest to complete a marathon. We have the 92-year-old Harriet Thompson, who completed the San Diego Marathon in 2015. We know that physical activity decreases the likelihood of early disability or death. So the recommended number of minutes to exercise each week is 150 to 300 minutes. However, if that sounds too daunting at first, there's benefit only with about 10 minutes a day. With 10 minutes a day, we make a huge improvement in our overall health and, that idea of staying above that threshold of disability as well. Exercise at any age is important. I wanted to show this slide because this has perhaps the oldest age group that's been looked at in terms of their ability to increase muscle strength and functional capacity. Look at this. They increased their quadriceps, their thigh strength by 174%, and the girth of their thighs increased by almost 10%. And then they had increased gait speed. They were able to climb steps better. Their balance was better, and their spontaneous activity levels improved. I want to share this video with you about a very interesting way in which muscle activity helps the health of the entire body. And it's through what are called the myokines and exerkines.
Now we're going to get into some nerdy science stuff, all right? So it's fascinating to me how this is all connected. So how does, walking to the corner store or walking up a flight of stairs, how does that impact, disease risk and cognitive function and longevity and mitochondrial health and cellular age and senescence? It's really a fascinating idea, and there are a lot of ways they're connected, but I want to address this crosstalk between systems in one particular area that I think you'll find interesting, and that is that your muscles actually serve as a pharmacy, right? So they are releasing all sorts of compounds that are signaling to the rest of your body. So there are these things called myokines. So myo is muscle, and they're signaling molecules that are released. And about 20 years ago, I think the first one was IL-6, was discovered that it was released in response to exercise. So this signal was going out to notify other tissues. And now they know about 650 to 3,000, depending on who you ask or how many different species you include. And the bottom line is we only understand a small portion of how these things work. And the ones that are released during exercise are called exerkines. And so it's kind of like Santa paying attention to how you've been throughout the year. Have you been naughty or nice? Have you been exercising or sedentary? Well, the rest of your body will know through these exerkines. So I put this up not to freak you out, but just to show you the complexity of the system. So this is a simplified version of what's going on, and you can see it's already complicated. And I just put it up to show you that your muscle here, as you're moving it, as you're walking, as you're running, whatever, it's signaling to your skin, to your brain, to your vascular system, your bones, your liver, your gastrointestinal tract, your immune function, adipose tissue. All these different things are receiving signals and knowing that you're exercising. So they work through a lot of different functions, but one key function I want to explore today, and that is a lot of them are anti-inflammatory molecules. So what does that mean? So what do we know about inflammation? Targeted acute inflammation is good. Like when you sprain your ankle and molecules go in there to try and fix your ankle, that's the repair process. But systemic chronic inflammation is bad. So systemic inflammation is associated with many diseases, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, dementia, etc. Obesity and sedentary behavior and poor diet increases systemic inflammation, and physical activity increases acute inflammation, but decreases chronic inflammation through changes in exerkines. Well, let me give you a little scenario of what might be happening with these myokines. It's COVID, you're working from home, you're sitting at your desk, you've become more sedentary, and so your background elevated of some not so good myokines may be high, right? So you have high systemic inflammation. You can kind of think of it as having a bunch of teenagers at home during COVID. So they have all this energy pent up. They have nothing to direct it to. So your house is a wreck. They've wrecked the joint. There's the TV's on, their dirty underwears everywhere. They have milk cartons on the counter. It's just crazy, like all this energy. So we'll come back to the teenagers in a moment. But you've taken this body hacking class now, and you realize you need to get up and at least start walking a little bit, if not running. And so during that physical activity, you're going to release myokines, and these myokines are going to have many benefits, and I'll come back to some in a moment. But also during exercise, you're going to get maybe some micro damage, some oxidative stress, some things that need to be addressed after exercise. And so your acute inflammation will increase. So then you go through this period of afterburn where your metabolic rate is elevated and you're trying to sort of get back to homeostasis. So you're trying to get your body back to where it was at rest. And so your circulating myokines will fall because they will focus on repairing that damage that happened during exercise. So repairing any micro damage in the muscle or mitochondria or DNA. And it's kind of like when you send your kids out to your teenagers out to play in a soccer game, right? They have all this energy and now they focus it on the game. So it's productive. They're scoring goals, they're doing well, they're using that energy for something productive. And that's sort of what it's like after the exercise bout. And you go through these repair processes where you repair the muscle. And while you're in there, things are activated like, oh, there's something wrong with that mitochondria over there. I think I'll fix that while I'm up and running. And so it's like when you call a contractor into your house to fix a hole in the wall, and they're like, oh, yeah, it'll be $2,000. And they come in and they take apart the wall, and then they say, oh, you have dry rot, and oh, by the way, your foundation is not up to code. I can fix that while I'm here. It'll be an extra $5,000. So it'll cost you in that afterburn period a little extra, whole wheat toast with avocado, but you will start repairing the damage that had accumulated from other sources. And so your damaged mitochondria might then be improved and look like this young, perky mitochondria. So then you're in this recovery and adaptation period, and you get your system ready for the next time. So you have lower resting systemic inflammation and decreased disease risk. And notice this woman's now standing because she understands that sitting is not so good for her. So it's when the teenagers come back into the house after their soccer game. They're all mellow. The energy level in the house is lower and done, and the house is no longer wrecked. So that's the equivalent of your system.
So let's talk about this effect of oxidants versus the antioxidants and this inflammatory process that she referred to. If we think of our teeth, the example of our teeth, we know that there's a very familiar oxidative process that happens, unfortunately, and causes tooth decay, right? This inflammatory process with the oxidants from the diet results in this inflammation and this decay. Exercise, you could think of, is brushing your teeth. It would be the equivalent to brushing your teeth for the effects in the oxidative effects in the body. So with this metabolic syndrome, we have increased, oxidative damage that occurs to the mitochondria. She referred to the mitochondria in the video. As the mitochondria start to have damage, unfortunately, the cells then become compromised. But the good news is that the exercise can indeed help reverse this process that's happening with the mitochondria. It can stimulate repair and increase the number and size of the mitochondria, and then therefore it helps to reduce the metabolic syndrome. And this is just one study showing that indeed the mitochondria do increase with exercise over time. So it says exercise increases the number of mitochondria in cells, even in older and overweight individuals. So physical activity guidelines. We know for cardiovascular health, we want to have 150 to 300 minutes of exercise per week. So that's like, 30 to 60 minutes a day for, 5 days a week. And we want to do resistance and flexibility exercise. We want that 2 to 3 times a week. And then neuromuscular exercise, right? We want to maintain our balance, our agility, our ability to walk safely, right, throughout our lives. So we want to, purposely work on this at least 2 to 3 times per week. And something else that's new is to avoid prolonged sitting. You may have heard that the sitting is the new smoking. Strength training, this is important as well, right? We know all these wonderful effects of strength training. We want to prevent the loss of muscle tissues as we age. That's known as sarcopenia, and that can be prevented with strength training. You may have heard of high-intensity interval training. High-intensity interval training, it kind of looks like this. And I found this at the AARP site. I thought it was a nice graph of how you accomplish it. What we'd want to do is walk, moderate pace, and then pick up the pace so that, you might be kind of out of breath, right? And you do that for at least 20 seconds, right? And then you walk again, and then you do another hit of, 20, 30, 40 seconds, more intensity. And we do this 3 or 4 times, or at least over a 10-minute period. And it's been shown to have significant effects in reducing metabolic syndrome and in improving your cardiovascular health. So we do want to exercise for health, for vitality, for improving metabolic syndrome, not necessarily for weight loss. And here's why. Let's say you weigh 180 pounds and you want to go for a 30-minute walk every day, right? So you're going to burn, if you're at a moderate pace, you're going to burn about 130 calories, right? But let's say you want to reward yourself for going on that walk. So you have a Gatorade. Now you just added 75 calories, right? And then you're thinking, I also want to, give myself some protein after exercising, right? So I need this Cliff Bar. But unfortunately, right, we just broke the bank on the calories. So now we've consumed many more calories than we've expended during the walk. Our outlook on exercise is important. So we don't want to think of it as a grueling workout, right? You could think of it as a time to get the kinks out, right? Time to get the stress out. It's a very constructive and healthy way to get stress out of my body. And I can have a fun out, right? I can make it fun. I can turn on some music. I can go for a walk with a friend. So the way that we think about exercise, it can change, right? We can really start to change our perception of exercise, and then we're much more likely to do it. I want to share some references about exercise and movement in the Baha'i writings. It says that if a child is not properly cared for in the beginning of life, so that he does not develop a sound body and constitution, does not flourish as it ought, his body will remain feeble. This matter of protecting the health of the child is essential, for sound health leads to insights and sense perceptions. And then the child, as he learns sciences, arts, skills, and civilities of life, will duly develop his powers. And then this one says, you should not neglect your health, but consider it the means which enables you to serve. It, the body, is like a horse which carries the personality and the spirit, and as such should be well cared for so it can do its work. So I'd like you to reflect for a minute. What is the best time for regular exercise for you, for your lifestyle? Like what time of day is the best time of day? And what activity can you picture yourself doing that you can enjoy and benefit from? Okay, I hope you found our exploration of movement and exercise helpful, and we'll carry on next time in our quest of becoming our healthiest selves.